So hello there. I just wanted to do a quick video. I got recently a couple of people talking to me about have I oversold the abilities of this Kayo K6-R? And specifically, I want to talk about this Kayo K6-R model, not the EFI, because the EFI and the R are two totally different motorcycles. So to answer the question, because that's what you came here for, I may have oversold the abilities of this Kayo K6-R. I'm going to still give you reasons why I think that I haven't, but it could go both ways. So to address the issue as it was posed to me, a gentleman bought a K6-R and he said, wow, this thing is super underpowered. You told me it wasn't. You said it was like an RM 250. And I think where he took it a little out of context, and maybe I didn't specifically say it, what I was comparing to was a 2007, 2008 Suzuki RM 250, RMZ 250. And even still, that motorcycle produces more power overall. But that is the closest that this bike is, because we're talking about a carbureted dual overhead cam engine. And both of those at that time frame, around that time frame, I may be even wrong about that. I haven't looked it up, to be honest. The Suzuki had a carburetor back then, and it was a kickstart, and the same scenario as my Kayo. Actually, the Kayo is a little better because it has electric start. But the way the horsepower built, that bike compared with this bike is very similar. They have the same kind of power curve. They are really meaty in the mid-range, and they pull pretty good. The difference being, this bike obviously is heavier. I have said it from the beginning. They advertise curb weight at 244, but I found my bike to be heavier than that from the beginning. And obviously I've done tons of upgrades to it at this point now and have more still coming. But I still stand behind what I said. This is the best true motocross. No other manufacturer is making a true motocross Chinese manufacturer motocross bike. And while this thing would get smoked in a race, if you were on the higher levels, I still stand behind what I've said, and I think Joe Henner has said it too, that if you're like a vet racer, but you're not racing towards Loretta Lynn's or something, if you're just a vet racer but you race locally, if you're a B, well, maybe not a B, a C-class rider, or a D-class, a beginner, stepping up from a 2-stroke to a 4-stroke, this bike is good for that. Now, we can debate all day long about parts availability, manufacturer support. I've told you from the beginning, if you go back, that Kayo is a new company. It's a gentleman split from working at Honda, an engineer, and created Kayo. And they're in other markets, they've been around for years, but they recently came to the United States. And this is their first venture into 250s. The Kayo K6-R, which is behind me, the carbureted, well-suspended, much more blingy parts, and then also off-road version, the Kayo K6-R, Kayo K6 EFI, which has totally... Let me set that one straight too. The difference between the two of those bikes, the EFI version and this version, the only thing they share in common is the main frame and the engine. Everything else is different between the two bikes. The plastic, the subframe, the airbox, one has EFI, one has carburetor, all the suspension components, the wheels, the hubs, the triple clamps, the electronics. It is those two These two bikes are totally different, except for the engine and the main frame itself. So getting that out of the way. Kayo came here, and they're getting their feet wet. Will you find it hard to find parts and dealer support? Yes. They're just starting out. Just like Honda, just like Yamaha and Suzuki, Kawasaki, when they first came over here, I know you young people don't know about this, but like in the 60s and 70s, when they first came across from Japan over here, you had a hard time getting stuff. KTM is the most, you younger people may know KTM. KTM in the early 90s really made a push to come over here. And you couldn't get parts for months if you had a problem, and their bikes were breaking down left and right. And they've finally come around to where they're pretty good. But I've digressed here. Getting back to the main topic. Did I oversell the abilities of this bike? And people are asking that because I've changed so much. I tinker. That's what I do. I like to mess around. I like being out here in the garage working on motorcycles. So yes, I have changed the shock spring. Yes, I totally changed out the front forks. But were the original equipment good? That's the question. And I would say they're competent. They're not on, you're not going to find it to be on the same level as a Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, and nor should you. That's an unrealistic expectation to have. Those bikes are $9,000 out the door, almost 10, I think, at this point. This bike is $6,000 coming out the door, at the most. I'm sure you can probably get it, less than that, but in the ballpark of about $6,000 out the door. 5 is the MSRP, but you have to pay, shipping, destination, setup, all the taxes, the paperwork, filing it if you get financing, all that figures in. So brand new, maybe 6 out the door, or somewhere between that, 5,800 and 6 out the door. And a new Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, Kawasaki, I think they advertise them MSRPs around 8,800 or something like that, close to 9. And then same scenario with them. You're almost going to be $1,000 more to get it out the door. Those bikes are purpose-built and have been constantly upgraded throughout all the years, throughout their manufacturing cycle, to be the tip of the spear. I maybe oversold this because I want it to be that. And in the beginning, very excited because we finally had a Chinese bike at a decent price that was not comparable, that's the wrong word, but to the level that it could stand up to a motocross track without falling apart and having to change every component at every level. And it was water-cooled, twin overhead cam, put out decent horsepower. It's 32 horsepower. It's not that bad. But it's got the transmission internal gearing is different. This has a wide ratio kind of set up for like desert racing and long stretches, long pull in between. But things can be done. Like I have a Joe Hinner timing advanced flywheel key, which helps wind up the engine quicker, which was a problem between these Chinese bikes and the Japanese bikes. I'm going to switch gearing. It's still on the way. I'm going to go to a 53 tooth, which will tighten up the transmission between the gears and give you more pop out of throttle response and pop. So there's always things that you can do. But back to the circle all the way back around again. Yeah, I probably oversold it. I'm very handy. I like to work on things. This engine, it's a little underpowered, I guess you would say, compared to the Japanese bikes, and the overall frame, componentry, all that is heavy compared to the Japanese bikes. So I'm going to freely admit that maybe I kind of oversold it a little bit. With the caveat of it's not nearly the price. I mean, you know, your entry to getting into riding is a whole lot less. You save thousands of dollars. When you can put that in towards, you know, your protection gear, you could put it into upgrades. The bike, people have been asking me about that. You know, well, you don't have outside support. Basically, every accessory that, with the exception of the pipe and silencer, no one's come up with a pipe and silencer yet. Everything else from the aftermarket can be had. You just have to figure out what the cross reference is. Like the brake rotors are Honda, the sprockets are Honda, brake pads are Honda, the plastic is KTM. The shrouds are specifically to Kayo, unfortunately. So I'm talking about just the back part and the front. Let's see. You know, levers, handlebars, grips, spark busters, skid plates. All those things are out there, just the same as they are for the Japanese bikes. You just have to know the cross reference. Like skid plates. People are asking me about skid plates a lot. From what I understand, what people have told me, don't hold me to it. This is hearsay at this point, but KTM 250 SXF from 16 to 19, Chirby's makes a plastic skid plate that is, you know, the wraparound kind that come up over the sides. And I think all you have to do is a little tweaking where it, I think you have to cut a little bit of the plastic where it goes back over the back frame rail in front of the linkage so that it'll fit in there. But other than that, supposedly it'll go on. But even if I'm wrong about that, there are some brands, and you can check my my Facebook group, the Kayo K6-R and Kayo K6-EFI group, owners group, sorry. And there have been people who've bought skid plates that do work, and they had minimal having to modify them in any way, shape, or form. But that's it. This is a little bit longer than I actually even thought I was going to go with it. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're still here at the end. I need to get those up there. Thank you. Appreciate it.